Welcome to our first Legacy Business Spotlight. We have Gene Tibon with the Tibon's Goju Ryu Karate. And what we're going to be doing, so Gene is a legacy business owner. He has had his business here in Stockton since 1984. March of 1984. And since then, he's expanded to include, you have 5 locations now, including your original Stockton location.
5 total locations.
Wow. Yeah. And I think one of the things that's really impressive too is he's been there for so long, and he also worked for PG&E for nearly 40 years. So
wow.
He was doing 37 years. So he was doing a lot during that time. And so what we're going to be doing today is learning a little bit about Gene's entrepreneurial journey and having him share some insight, a little bit more about his business, and just sharing his experience going through starting a business, the ups, the downs, the great takeaways, the achievements. So, Gene, just to get us started, what inspired you to start your business? What was your inspiration?
My background is family involved in martial arts. My father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, and even my great-great-grandfather, because of the martial arts experience and background. And so, 5th generation, and it's just like it was supposed to be, because that's all we talked about, around the family tables are martial arts and developing martial arts. And so what I decided on doing is, after learning from my father, who was our first teacher, we had our own school in the backyard with brothers and sisters and cousins, and eventually I needed more. So I went to my father's instructor, and I trained with him for 12 years, and I needed more. So I ended up being introduced to one of the top masters of the world out of Japan, Kenzo Uchagi, with his 9th degree, president of Japan Karate Federation, and the founder of Uchagi Kai, is the organization out of Japan. And so his son is Takeshi Uchagi, who's in Canada, who I'm with also. And so I started training with them because I wanted, very early, is to, when I established my students, that their ranking was internationally certified, not just something out of Kinko's or Pit Running. A lot of places, that's what they do. They just make up their own certifications because they don't want to have an oversight. I wanted oversight. I wanted my students to never be ashamed or afraid of their certification and their ranking, because it comes directly from Japan, from the Japan Karate Federation, from Uchagi Kai, which is the world body, under the WKF, which is the World Karate Federation, and the International Olympic Committee. So their certifications are recognized in over 200 countries around the world. So when you have that kind of certification, that kind of background, very few people can question your legitimacy. And so as I grew up with that attitude, I knew right off the bat that I needed to get the legitimacy of certification, and I had to align myself with the right people. But it being something that we grew up with, I needed to take it to another level, so that I wanted to give my students and all the people that trained under us a legitimate, proud certification that says, we're not out of Kinko's a pit running. We got the real deal.
I like that. I am curious, I know you touched on this a bit earlier. How did you manage juggling starting your business? You have a family life, you have your PG&E job, and starting your own business. How were you able to balance all of that?
Well, starting off as a young child at age 7 in martial arts, we developed already a competitive spirit. And so it was already ingrained into us growing up, my brother and my sisters, that attitude of just being the best we could be, challenging ourselves. And so when I first, graduated out of high school, I needed a job that I thought they could really give my young family. My wife and I, had just gotten married. And so I tried to get on at PG&E because that's the place, either the city of Stockton or the state or something like that. And so I called PG&E after I put in my application every day for 2 months.
Wow.
And the human resource manager got upset with me. He goes, hey, you don't have to call every single day. And I said, but I want a job and I want a chance, I want an opportunity. He goes, how old are you? I said, I'm 18, I just graduated from Stack High School. And he goes, but he goes, tell you what, he goes, come on in for an interview. The only way I'm going to get you off my back is you. And so I came in, and it was the first time I had ever put on a tie. And my hair was long at the time, like it was in the 70s. I mean, this was 73. And so I had to cut my hair, so all my neck was all white.
Fresh cut.
Fresh cut, you know, because my hair's been long all through high school and everything. And I was part of the football team, track team, and I was bench pressing, you know, big weights, 400 pounds of bench press. And so we were all part of those clubs. And so when I came in, I was nervous. I seen a room full of other people applying for the same job. There was probably about 20, 25 people. And he calls me in and he introduces himself. He goes, I know your voice, just hearing you introduce yourself to the secretary that you're here, just from hearing you on the phone all the time. Come on in. So we sit down and he says, why should we hire you? And I says, well, I'll tell you what. I says, here's all of my letters of recommendation that I have from all the jobs that I've had, all my character references. And I says, and I will do the worst job that you have. I'll clean toilets with a toothbrush, and I'll do it better than anybody. And I'll do it for 2 weeks for free. If you don't like my work, don't pay me. If you like my work, pay me. That's all I ask. I says, the other thing is, go outside in this lobby and say, I have a guy out here willing to clean toilets with a toothbrush for 2 weeks for free. Are any of you in here willing to do the same?
There you go.
And so the manager who was in there with the interview, with the human resource manager, says, I gotta have this kid. He goes, I need you. I need you in my department. He goes, can you pass a drug test? I said, absolutely. And he says, okay. And I said, I'm strong, so I can bench press 400 pounds, so I'm not gonna be lazy. So I passed the drug test and went in, and I got on it as a summer hire. And during that summer hire piece, I had a lot of people, for whatever reason, were kind of jealous that, you know, that I got the job. And so they were kind of down on me. So I just worked hard and worked my lunches, my breaks, and just wanted to be the best that I can be. So at the very least, I told them, if I can get anything out of this, if I don't get a job, a letter of recommendation for the next job that I go to. If I can get a letter of recommendation from you, from PG&E, saying I was a great summer health employee, then maybe I can get another job. So during all this time, that was my martial arts background experience, is to not give up, to work hard, to push and drive. And so they ended up hiring me full time. And little did I know that when I started off the summer hire, years down the road, I was going to end up with my own department. And I was the supervisor in charge of the Revenue Protection Department, which is the fraud and theft division for people who stole electricity or bypass. So we busted over 500 marijuana grow operations, so they didn't like us too well. But I worked a lot with the CrackNet, ACNet, the narcotics teams, and all the district attorneys and for the prosecutions and everything. And one thing that I learned out of all of it with PG&E was not only leadership, but I learned a lot about customer service. Because you have to think about this. After I bust you and put you in jail, when you come out and you pay your bill and what you owe us, I'm going to treat you with world-class service and give you electricity and gas again. And so we have to really be about integrity and dignity and respect about that. That taught me a lot about my own business and what I have to do with people, because that taught me something with interacting with people after worst scenarios, to bring them back in to our customer base and take care of them, and they really feel like we care. And so that was a big piece for me in learning about customer service with that. But during that period of time, in training with martial arts, I've been continually keep training. It got to a point where PG&E was starting to do layoffs, and it got to a point where they were going to lay off 3,500 employees because they wanted to consolidate a lot of the classifications. And I said, oh my gosh, if I get laid off, what am I going to do? I have a young family now too. This is, about 8-10 years down the road. And so I transferred into another department, but between that time, I had to see what can I do to survive. So I said, you know what? First I started with 6 students in my garage, where my son's friends are only like 10, 11, 12 years old. Next thing you know, I'm training them really hard, and they start doing well with competitions, and we're beating all the commercial schools all the regular established, karate schools and martial arts schools out there. And they were getting upset with us because, man, this karate school is beating us. This karate school come out here beating us. So little by little, the word got out on us because of the quality and development that we were doing with our students. And I started getting a lot of knocks on the door. Hey, can you teach us? Can you teach us? Can you teach us? And I go, at that time, you're a young instructor. You always have a little bit of hesitation about charging because you just don't want to, I didn't believe in that at the time because you just wanted to do it because of a passion and love. These people wanted it. So little by little, I ended up with close to 60 students at my house.
Oh my gosh.
Front yard, backyard, garage, driveway, and they killed my lawn. The neighbors would get so upset because they couldn't even find a place to park. And so we had to start taking them to Yosemite Park, or Legion Park now, and we train them down there and stuff. And what ended up happening is my wife and I were going down to Yosemite Street, where we're at now. We saw one of the health stores was open for business. Or not open for business, well, it was open for business, but it had a rent sign on the front. And I went in and I says, for rent? And the guy says, yeah, I'm closing up. And he goes, the owner's down at the corner, and he owns the meat market. So we went down there, and I introduced myself, and I told him what I'd like to do, open a karate school here. And he goes, I don't know, we've had close to 6 different businesses here in less than a year and a half, and they've all failed. They've all bankrupted. He says, karate school? I don't think that you'll make that. And I says, can I try? And so I'll tell you what, I'll give you the first month, which was February, free. So you can do all the different things you want to do in there. So my wife and I, and my oldest son, and my youngest son, we were in there on our knees. We were sanding the floors, we were painting, we were doing all kinds of stuff. It was old school. And but we worked for a full month just getting the place ready to bring my students there. When he didn't know that I already had 60 students to bring in there. So I had enough to pay the bill. But I hadn't really started charging at that time. Little by little, I started when people started saying, Sensei, we feel bad that you're teaching us karate for free, for a couple hours here and there. You got to charge us something. And I says, okay, to make you happy, $1 an hour. How's that sound? Okay, $1 an hour, yeah. They were all happy. Next thing you know, my wife, she's filling up our little teapot that we had the house full of dollar bills because everyone would come here, here's my $1, here's my $1. I said, man, we're making like $20, $30, doing, but little by little, as it morphed into our main dojo, little did I know that instead of going broke and like a lot of other schools or businesses that open up their first year of business, I own it now. So I own the building, so that's the last thing we were ever worried about. But juggling karate and running that business and working at PG&E was very difficult. But what it all came down to was life scheduling. I mean, I lived by the minute. And the biggest part of it all is having a very, very loving and supportive wife. There is no way that I can do this without my wife. The one thing that I have to give credit to is that to have a wife who is willing to step up and say, you know what, whatever you do, whatever you try, I'm supportive of you, and I'll be there for you. Fail or succeed, I'll be there. And so she's always given me the opportunity not to be afraid to try. And that's a big thing. I've got friends who wanted to open up schools, but their wives won't let them. They wouldn't let them. They were afraid of the risk or just opening up a business. And I'll be honest with you, my wife was afraid of it at first too. When we were first ready to open up our dojo, we've been working, and we're scrubbing the floors with sanders, and she looked at me, she goes, I want my money back. I said, what? She goes, I want my money back. We put our whole life savings into this thing. I want my money back. And I said, okay, we'll make a deal. I'll give you your money back, but everything that we make from this is me, all mine. You don't get none of it. Never mind. And so that's one of our stories that we always say all the time. She goes, that's the biggest thing is I wanted money back. And then she goes, when you said I don't get none of it, she goes, okay. So it actually helped our lives so much that we were able to put our kids through college. They didn't come out with any kind of loans or anything. They all got their bachelor's degrees. They went to major colleges, universities. but juggling both was very difficult, you know. But the customer service things that I learned, the hard work and the tenacity of martial arts training helped me not only be competitive against all of the other martial arts schools, and there wasn't very many at the time. There was a small handful. Now there's like 135 in a 20-mile radius, and so we have to still, you know, survive. And so the difference between us and everybody else is we are non-contractual. You got to think about this. When you come into my business, you come in with nothing in your hands, and when you leave, you have nothing in your hands, but you still pay for it, and you come back and keep paying for it. So my product has to be exceptional because I'm teaching a mindset, an idea, and I'm teaching that, you know, and I have to make it not just average, I have to make it world class. So what I did is I developed and trained with the highest level people in the world and got the certification, and I became not only the technical committee chairman for the United States Olympic Committee for karate for Goju, but I also became the executive vice president. I became the head of the United States National Coaches Selection Committee. I became all the top levels because I decided that when I read in these books and all these different audio tapes that I would listen to while I'm driving, while I'm doing all my investigations, I plug these audio tapes on leadership, development, customer service, and all the different things that I needed to learn, not only from what I was getting from PG&E, but also from what I was getting from all of these different books out there. And I believe in there's wasting time and there's spending time. People waste time all the time. They don't do nothing. They sit around. But wasting time is they don't do anything. But spending time is very different. Spending time is like I'm doing right now. I'm spending time with you. I'm giving you hopefully some insight for your own business or your own attitude of how you're going to approach your business. And so I learned that even when I'm driving, which could be like wasting time as I'm going someplace important, but in between that period, I could be listening to something that will help me educate myself so that I can go and run my business effectively by learning customer service skills, leadership skills, how to teach leadership skills. You know, John C. Maxwell is something that I've made every one of my students that are in my leadership program, they have the essays on. They got the 17 irrefutable laws of teamwork, the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, and the 360-degree leaders. They have to do essays on that, and I get their essays back and I read them to make sure that they understand, because I can't teach leadership if they don't know what leadership is. And if they know what all the different styles of leadership are, they start realizing what leader are they, what in them can relate to these different laws, and you'll see in John C. Maxwell's books. And all of a sudden, I'm developing these incredible leaders. I have one of my students, Brian, who just came back, you know, from Texas. He went through all the different colleges he went to get his, you know, his certifications, become a real high-level mechanic, working on BMWs and Audis. And he told me, he goes, you know, Sensei, I came back and I went down to Pleasanton, and I applied for a job there. And when I was being interviewed, he says, he goes, the guy interviewing me says, so tell me about the books that you read. I want to know what kind of person you are. It gives me some idea of maybe why would I hire you or maybe not hire you. And he says, well, I've read the 360-degree leaders, John C. Maxwell, 17 irrefutable laws, and 21 irrefutable laws. He goes, you're kidding. He goes, no, just walk with me. So he got up, walked with him into the break room, and there was a big poster of John C. Maxwell with a 360-degree leader on it about how you can manage from every place, from the middle, from bottom up, to be able to make impacts, you know, inside of your company. He says, you're hired. And so he came back and told me, you know, sense of those essays you made us do? He goes, they work. They work. It's impacted me. He goes, I got a great job because of it. And all of my students who have all done the same. One of my other students who is a pharmacist right now, he's sitting there in class. He just, you know, now he's in charge of pharmacy at UC Davis. But while he was at UOP for pharmacy school, he's sitting there, and a lot of the guys that he says we're in the class, we're watching him doing all these little side essays on leadership and all of the things that I give him. And they were saying, hey, what are you doing? Why are you doing that leadership stuff? And he looked up at me and goes, because you know why? One day I'm going to be your boss. had it already in his head that all those different skill sets were going to give him the ability to lead other people. Most people can't lead themselves, but if you learn and understand how to lead other people and help them become great, then you just contributed something that most people can never do. They have a problem with their own life, much less help somebody else find a greatness in their own. So those are the kind of things that I try to do with Arts Karate program. Not just how to punch, walk, and kick at the highest level of international certification, and the well of our information is some of the highest masters ever, in the world. Is to give them the skill set of life skill development and how do you apply all this hard work with this leadership that we're training you in, and how to become not only good martial artists, but also how to become good contributors to the community or wherever you go. How do you make an impact? How do you make that difference? And so in a lot of these different things that we've done with our martial arts schools, we've tried to interact with the community and try to show them that we're here to make a difference. Our students are, so we have our kids are cleaning up the neighborhood, we do demonstrations, we do all that kind of stuff to show them, and they're shocked by it because they don't see teenagers out there doing that kind of stuff. Not nowadays. Much less, being respectful and helpful and taking self-initiative. Here, sir, let me grab that for you. It's pretty heavy. Come here, man. Let me lift that up for you. Let me open the door for you. Those kind of things are gone. And we're trying to rekindle those things with life skill development about the art of martial arts, so karate do. Karate means empty hand. Do means the proper path of man or woman. And when you understand karate do, that means you're learning how to defend yourself, but karate is meant for helping, not for hurting. You have the choice to walk away. It's a choice. But if you don't have a choice, and the person forces itself on you, then you have a way to defend yourself. And you have to win. You can't just barely make it, barely survive. You have to win, so we have to train them hard, give them all the information they need, so that they can defend themselves if they have to, or walk away or recognize a bad situation. Because sometimes kids don't even know, they walk right into a mess, and next thing you know, they're getting jumped, beat up, or they're getting into a place. So they go, that doesn't look like a good place to go. And they make that decision to go a different direction or not go there. So we try to teach those leadership skills to think about what if, the unexpected. How do you anticipate? To win conflict without conflict is the highest level of martial arts. That's the highest. People are like, hey, what about jiu-jitsu? What about taekwondo? What about karate? What about this, that, that? And I says, highest level of martial art, highest, is to win conflict without conflict. To be able to win a situation without having to lift a finger. Because of strategy or an attitude that you give. People can tell if you're strong or if you're weak. They can tell. I mean, like they say, humans are creatures of habit. But if you watch all creatures in the world, they all have different things. They all do the same. And you see that, with Wild Kingdom. You see the animals will chase after either the weak or the babies or the elderly ones that can't get around or get away. And unfortunately, it's kind of like that in human too. You'll see the people out there that are the aggressors or the criminals who are looking for an easy target. They're looking for the young. They're looking for the elderly. They're looking for somebody who can't defend themselves. And so those are the things that we try to make at least students understand. Be prepared at whatever age you are, that there's always the opportunity to make a decision to either go here or get away from it. And sometimes, if you can't, you got to fight and win. I'm sorry, I kind of rambled on.
This is the easiest story I've ever had to do. I was happy to listen. Okay, I have just a couple more questions really because you touched on most of it. I did want to start real fast before the two questions. I know you brought a couple of things to share.
Sure. I can go through them real quick.
Yeah.
Just look at them. So in here is in a magazine called Masters Magazine, Martial Arts Magazine. This is the very first, when I was on the Olympic Training Center and on the technical committee, they asked me, try to make a difference. I said, absolutely, I'll make a difference. So what I did is I created what was called the Youth Development Karate Program through the Olympic Training Center. And so what I did is, I said, you know what we need to do is we need to develop young kids who are not on Team USA yet and teach them and their senseis how to develop the most highest level athletes to represent us in international competition around the world. The only way that we're going to represent our country is we need to be a force out there to be reckoned with. And the way we can do that is start them young and develop them at the highest level of development. And so where else but the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. And so as I partnered with the Olympic Training Center, because I was part of the Olympic program with USA Karate, I asked them what are the opportunities for me to host a camp or a seminar here. So I talked to our CEO and he goes, hey, if you can get it, go for it. But they all kind of laughed at it, said, they ain't gonna happen. And because it just doesn't. But I said, you know what, asking you shall receive, right? So I called up the Olympic Training Center and I asked them, what is the opportunity for me to host a youth development training camp here at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs? This is as long as they're national governing body pipeline athletes, in other words, they're members of the USA Karate, they'd be able to come here, but unfortunately, you have to share with 52 other national governing bodies, and they're all in line for a room or for a space, and it's like a couple of years wait. I said, nothing. She goes, you know what? She said, it must be fate because something did come up. Because we were supposed to be shutting down the whole Olympic campus because they're going to close down the cafeteria for remodeling for all the athletes because the food and everything that they eat is all specialized in what they do. And she goes, and they canceled it Thanksgiving week. And so nobody has that. And so if you want to come in here Thanksgiving week, we'll host you and you can have everything here. I says, really? And I said, how many can I have? She goes, how many do you got? I said, I got about 50. She goes, bring them. And so I got the Olympic Training Center on Thanksgiving week, and we trained them, and these kids it inspired them. We had speakers, we talked about the doping, USADA, the drug testing. We made them understand about health and fitness and the right things to eat. And then the training, and we put them through a lot of physical training, a lot of karate, and the judo room. They had the USA judo room in there with all the mats. So we trained them there for close to 4 or 5 days, and it was incredible. I mean, we had a magazine come in, they came in and they took pictures. This is the first in history that's ever been done for USA Karate's grassroots development program, so I call it USA Grassroots. And so in doing that, we got a lot of coverage on it, and every one of those kids all became members of Team USA in years in the future. They were becoming the best. They took all of the things that we taught them and developed them, and their instructors on things, what to teach the students, and they took them home, and they spread that within their programs, and we made an impact on karate's development while I was in the Olympic program. What ended up happening is some of the people on the technical committee and the board of directors got a little jealous of what I was doing. Because they say, yeah, right, yeah, go ahead, do it. And then I got it. And I did it for 3 years there, and it really drove them nuts. Because I was getting it, and I asked, the director over there, can I get the same time every year? She goes, yeah, we'll lock it in, because nobody else has it. So I had 3 years that I had those days locked in. So what happens is these guys all decide to take it away from me. They says, you know what, Gene, we're gonna take your program. And there ain't much you can do about it. Because I'm just part of the board, right? And they says, we're gonna take it from you. And I says, okay, not a problem. Really? You're not bothered by it? No, not a problem. So I walked outside, I called up the Olympic Training Center, and I says, hello, Beth, and that was the name of the director. I said, what happens if I cancel my day? She goes, then you drop off, and it'll be like 3 years for you to get another day. You'll never get it. And I said, so if I cancel it right now, no one can get it. She goes, except for the next national governing body in line, which could be wrestling, which could be, track, that could be anything, because it's the rooms that are there. Mm-hmm. And I said, cancel. Cancel. So I walked in, I said, guys, you got it. And they didn't know that I canceled it. So what I did is I was on I was a board member with the Sports Commission, City of Stockton Sports Commission, for about 8 years. And there was a gentleman by the name of Lynn King who was the director for athletics at the University of Pacific. And I said, Lynn, what are the possibilities of me bringing my Olympic program to University of Pacific? And I showed him these magazines. I showed him that it was a legitimate Olympic program. He goes, we would love to have you. So he talked to the president and they got the approval. And we brought it all there for like 3 years. We did it there at University of Pacific. It was the largest and one of the biggest youth Olympic development programs in the country. I brought in all the world champions from around the country and around the world. Flew them in. We had 4 or 5 days of training. We got the dorms that the 49ers used. So we had those dorms for all of our kids. We had 120 kids. They were coming in from all over the place, and we developed a ton of champions. But those were the kind of things that we did when it came to how do we make impacts, through our martial arts, especially in the position that I was in. I was able to create these programs that was actually able to help develop the athletes and develop the senseis and the coaches on how to develop national team people. I had this one coach who was coming to me to ask to be selected as one of the USA coaches. And I was head of the selection committee, so I did all the interviews. Being an investigator for PG&E, I got, you get taught on how to interview, people through FBI and CIA, people that they hired to teach you how to do investigations and how to do interviews. And so I interviewed these guys, and they put me in that position because I knew how to ask questions that were difficult. And so the guy comes up and he asks, he says, I want to be a coach. And I said, why should I select you? Just like I got picked for PG&E, right? I wanted to hear what he had to say. And he says, well, if you gave me all of the top athletes in the country, with my mind, I can make them the best. And I says, really? And he goes, yes. With my mind, if I have the best athletes in the country, I can make them the best in the world. And so let me ask you a question then. How many Team USA athletes do you have that you created out of your dojo? Well, none. I said, well, how many national champions have you developed out of your dojo? Well, none. How many have finished at least in the top 3 of the USA team trials? Well, none. And I says, well, how would I pick you if you had none? He goes, well, how many have you put? And I says, I put 60 on Team USA. Junior and senior national team. That's why I'm on the selection committee. That's why I'm asking you. And I said, why would I put my students in your hands when you've not developed any of your own? Think about this. I said, you've had them since the very beginning, since they were babies. No one else has taught them except you. They should be all champions if your mind is that great and you're able to develop that level. Every one of them should be the top in their divisions. But you haven't developed even one for the national team, not even one that even medaled in the trials. And you want to take all of our students, all of our people, and you think that you're going to be able to make that change and make them all world champions? Well, you can't even do your own. And he goes, I'm sorry for taking your time, sir. And he walked off. Later, after all the other interviews, I'm walking down the hallway, and he's sitting there with his hand on his face like this. And I said, are you okay? And I tapped him on the back. He goes, yeah, I'm fine. I just got a dose of reality from you, though. He goes, I didn't realize that I wasn't as good as I thought I was. Just my mind thinking that if I had all these outstanding athletes that I could do these things with them, when you make me think about it, I should be able to do that for my own.
Yeah.
He says, well, that's how it works. You got to be able to do, so you learn, and you learn, so you can teach, and then you teach, so you can take it on to the next level. It takes that, but you got to be able to do first, and if you haven't done that yet, then you got to learn. You got to learn by doing it. So, yeah. Anyway, it's been an amazing ride, just for the fact that when you set a goal, and I read this in a book and heard it in some leadership tapes that I had. If you're going to do something, anything in particular, a career path or whatever you want to do, work very hard to be the best at it. Not just one of the best in your city, but one of the best in the country, or maybe one of the best in the world. And by doing that, you have to prepare yourself and learn all the information you can about your particular desire your particular passion that you want to do. And that's the other thing. If you love it, you'll be successful. If you hate it, you won't. You gotta love it. You gotta be passionate about it. If you don't have those things, then don't do that business. But the thing is when you have a passion for a business, I mean, I can't believe I'm making a living and doing what I'm doing and I'm getting paid for it. Not very many people I know saying, I'm doing what I absolutely love and I'm making a living from it. When you can, then you have a good life. You know, you have a very good life. You know, I learned a long time ago, as I wake up every morning, I say, thank you, God. Thank you for letting me open my eyes for another day. What do you have planned for me today? What outstanding day do you have planned for me today? And every day I wake up with that attitude of, what outstanding thing do you have planned for me today? Look at this. This is outstanding for me. I couldn't even dream this, but at the same time, God has given me that gift of, what outstanding thing do you have for me today? And so I've been lucky. And then getting the award here on the city hall steps. Those are another thing. I've been inducted into 14 Hall of Fames, not including the Stockton Sports Athletic Hall of Fame and Stagg High School's Hall of Fame, my own high school. Yay! Show that martial arts for a better world. And people say, how do you make martial arts for a better world? I said, by maybe hosting an event, like a martial arts event. And I said, let's do one bigger than life. And we did it at the Spano Center. Nobody had ever done a martial arts tournament at the Spano Center. And I says, let's go one step further. I want to include every martial arts system. So I included karate, taekwondo, traditional karate. And the difference between traditional and open karate are two different ones. You have a lot of different styles. Kung Fu, taekwondo, and Olympic taekwondo. We had Eskrima, Filipino martial arts. We had all that. And so I had 12 rings, and we set everybody up, had 4 rings to run their respective divisions. Our first tournament we had 2,800 competitors. It was huge. We made the front page of the paper too.
Yes.
But we brought in some of the top people to run their particular group of disciplines, and we ended up, raising money for the Child Abuse Prevention Council of San Joaquin County, for the Polyclass Foundation for Missing Kids, and for the Stockton Youth Police Youth Activities. And so in doing that, we did it every year for 3 years. We had done that. And it was a huge event, but at the same time, it was a lot of work. And we did it all for free. That's what you don't find very much anymore, people who do things like that for free. Because we gave all the money away. And I remember Chief Chavez was the police chief at the time. I gave him a $25,000 check, and the Child Abuse Prevention Council, I gave them a $20,000 check. And they used it all for different things that they needed for their programs. They'd never seen that, where a martial arts program gave money like that to the community. But I wanted to show that we can make a difference if we use even our own product, which is martial arts, in a positive way of just impacting the city. And that's what we did. But it's been an amazing ride. From that is when I got recognized to become part of the Olympic program. What ended up happening is Disney got in touch with me and says, we need you. I says, for what? He goes, we host one of the largest martial arts tournaments in the world. We have 50 tatami mats. We do it at the Milk House in the Jostin Center, at the Wide World Sports Complex, and at Disneyland. And so we want you to be in charge of the traditional classical karate. And I said, I would love to. I would love to do that. And I can interject the Olympic training program. I had some incredible staff, referees and judges that were part of the Olympic program, National Federation, that were all my staff. So I had a team of traveling referees who were willing to fly all the way to Florida and all the way to California to Disneyland. And we would host one of the largest martial arts events. And I did that for 6 years. So you can imagine between karate school, working at PG&E, and then doing the events and managing all that we ended up hosting the 2000 National Championships in Sacramento at the convention center, and the 2003 Nationals and USA Team Trials in San Jose. And it was all my families, all my parents. I had 300 of my family members trained for 3 and 4 months for timekeeping, scorekeeping, registration, for security. They were all involved, and so we trained them all how to do all specific things, and we threw one of the largest and most successful nationals and USA Team Trials ever. And so those are the kind of things that I try to do, is either first class or no class. Do it right the first time or don't do it at all. We're hosting our first return 36th annual Tibon's Goju Ryu Summer In-House at St. Mary's High School, June 23rd, Sunday. I've got all of the visiting dignitaries. I've talked to Mayor Kevin Lincoln. He says they're going to do a proclamation. Miguel Villapueda with County Supervisor, he goes, we're going to do a proclamation. The San Joaquin County District Attorney, Ron Freitas, says we're going to do something. The police chief, Stanley McFadden, he goes, I'm there. And we put an invitation out to Pat Withrow, but we haven't had an opportunity to talk to him yet. But I have all these, just these incredible dignitaries wanting to come and support what we're doing because of the community impact that we've made through our martial arts, that they see it. I had Ron Freitas mention to me, he goes, you know what? If we had every child in this city go through your karate program, just watch our demonstrations and all the things that we've done, he says, we wouldn't have the issues that we have right now. Because we've never arrested none of your people. He goes, we wouldn't have this problem. So that's when he came to me and said, your nonprofit organization, he goes, why don't you look at see how we can help at-risk kids. And so I said, I have a nonprofit that we would like to be involved with that. So I applied for the asset forfeiture grant, and he awarded me at the National Night Out at Yosemite Street with a $25,000 check.
Nice.
And
Yes.
so right now we're scholarshiping 15 different students or different kids who have different issues in their life. Some are being raised by their grandparents, some are being raised by uncles and aunts, some are just kids that can fall through the cracks very easy. And so we're doing partial scholarships with them to help them to come into our karate program, develop into our leadership program, so that they can get these things now instead of maybe never get a chance to do it because either they can't afford it because of limited budget, because grandparents and they're on limited budget, they can't afford certain things. So I've got several grandparents right now that they says, I can't believe the difference you're making in our children. And I said, well, all you got to do is tell them, I'm going to call Sensei. and he had no problem with push-ups, and the kids really work well. That's the thing about discipline. Kids like discipline if you do it correctly. If you do it right, they like discipline. If you do it wrong, then it's overdone. But if you do it right, kids learn and they appreciate when you give them compliments. Part of what I teach, and I have my staff teach this, is correction does much, but encouragement does everything. That does everything. And I says that should be your statement, your mantra that you teach by. Correction does much, but encouragement does everything. And you do that. One thing to correct and say, but you know what? You're outstanding. You have the potential to be outstanding. You can do this, you can do that. Because that child doesn't leave feeling dejected, I got corrected, I didn't do this, but they get told later, see, that hard work, it pays off. We have every month, we have a promotion testing for somebody coming 6 months of training. So that's when they qualify for a new ranking test for our international certification. And so I have this one student who was testing for his brown belt. And he didn't do too well. He didn't do what he's supposed to do. And I fail the students. I don't give rank just to give it. For them to step up to that level that we're trying to teach, just like I did at the Olympic Training Center, you have to know the requirements. You got to be a certain level of quality. And so I says, I'm sorry, you failed. And so because we have a promotion every single month, you can test again next month. It don't cost you nothing. You already, paid for the opportunity to test, so you can test next month. Just fix your mistakes. Well, he didn't come back the next month. And he didn't come back the next month. He didn't come back the next month. So 6 months later, he come back and he tested again for that same level that he failed at, and he did perfect. He did outstanding. And I looked at him, and I looked at his mother, and I says, you know what? That's why I failed you. So you can come back and show me that. And I got the best out of you. And his mom started crying. She goes, he worked so hard for this. And I says, all he needed was to know that if you want anything worthwhile, you got to work for it, you got to sacrifice for it, you got to dedicate yourself for it. It doesn't come free. It comes with hard work and sweat. My old sensei says one thing. He goes, Sensei Tibon, nothing's free, not even air. Because even air, you have to pay tax and gasoline. So nothing is free, not even air.
Yeah.
So it's either a cost or it's sacrifice and hard work and dedication. If you don't have those things, it's not worth it. Because if they just give it to you, then you have no value to it.
No.
If you work for it, you train for it, and you give your all, you are always, satisfied and very proud to receive that certification from us. It's one thing for the students to get that rank, and it's another one to watch them climb to higher levels to eventually get their black belt levels. And that black belt, all it means, it doesn't mean the end. Oh, I got my black belt. I says, congratulations, time to start learning. Because in Japan, that's all it means. It means master the basics. But I get people, I hear they got their black belts and they think they're done. No, I said, that's just the beginning. You have 10 levels of Q levels, which is like white belt to brown belt, 3-stripe, known as EQ. Then you have 10 levels of black belt. You have the first level, first dan is like the beginner. That's like, it's just now you know how to do everything correct. It just means you know how to do it right. But the next degrees that you go all the way up to a higher level comes to the different levels of understanding, the more depth of the strategies and the more depth of the art itself. But also, how do you turn that art into something that people can understand and learn from? And so, myself, I would have never believed, my sensei says, when I first got my 4th dan, I says, wow, I was so proud of my 4th degree, And then he says, I asked him, I says, Sensei, what is it like for maybe like me to ever look at where your level is, like 7th, 8th, 9th? Well, Sensei won't never. I says, really? He goes, yeah. Usually most out of Japan, 8th, 9th, 10th. Here, not too often, not the traditional certification. Because you have a lot of people call themselves 15th degrees. There's only really 10, but they'll make themselves a little higher. And so, when I finally, I kept on testing, and especially all the positions I know in the living program, I got to a level that our contribution of what difference did we make with the art? What is our contribution with karate? What did we do that made it better and impacted a community, if not impacted the country? And I was able to do that through my programs, through my Olympic development programs. And so eventually I got to a level that I got promoted to the 8th degree black belt, internationally certified. And instead of me going to Japan to get it, he brought Japan to Canada, because that's where it was at, was in Canada. So he brought the chancellor and all the top dignitaries from Japan. He flew them in, and they awarded it to me during the international tournament, and I was given that, along with the mayor was there too. But you just never know where it's going to end up to. But anyway.
Great. So I've got one last question for you. First off, thank you so much for sharing all of that. You've given back so much to the community, and it's such an inspiring story. Looking about how the networks that you have, all the great support, how important that is, and just your resilience and your confidence in going through everything. And I love hearing how much you give back to the community. You do so much for the community. You have so many other amazing things. I was telling him when I was looking up his information and achievements and how much he's given back. It just goes on and on and on. And it's so wonderful. And we're really grateful that you're here in the community giving back. And I think that's one of the reasons it's so important to support our entrepreneurs and our small businesses, because when you're successful, the community's successful and it grows. And so our final question here, and I know we have to wrap it up soon, but I'm curious how Stockton, so the city of Stockton, the people, our community, how we can best continue to support you.
Well, this is a good forum right here, just giving me an opportunity to get people to know what I'm about, what our program's about. And I started off in the garage, ended up at my location at 923 Northeast 70 for 40 years. We've been at Gym Stars, Stockton on Hammer Lane. We've been there for 28 years since they opened up. Almost 30 years at Twin Arbors in Lodi with Hires Goju Ryu. In Modesto, Gym Stars, we've been there for close to 23 years. And we have a new school in San Jose, the United Bay Area Karate Club with one of my students, Sensei Joan Orban. But Chris Hires is in Modesto. In Lodi, and then I've got a Chris Emmett in Modesto. But all these students were my kids since very young age. And we develop, and like I said, I give my black belts their first jobs. I hire them because they know from the leadership development training all the way up to internship, assistant instructor, then instructor. Then they go off to universities or college or to another job. And the next group steps up. The interns move to assistants, the assistants move to chief. And next thing you know is we have this constant development of lineage that we've developed from our kids to give them their first jobs. And so it's easy for me to write a letter of recommendation for them because I run them just like an employer does for a major company. They get evaluations, we talk with them, we coach them, and we give them the opportunities. The idea that the city supports us, the county supports us because of our wide impact throughout the valley, through all of our karate programs, all the way into Stanislaus County, but because we've spread across so much of an area because of our schools, just giving the opportunity to let people know that we're out there and that we're non-contractual. That's the big thing.
That's a big thing.
That's the big thing. People get stuck to things and they don't like it, they can't get out of it. I got people come to me and say, Sensei, can you help us get out of this contract with this other school? And I says, why? I said, because they won't let me out of it. I can't get out. I'm not coming. I said, well, you should have came here in the first place. I says, but I tell them, I says, we're not only non-contractual, but if you don't come, I don't bother you. I don't call you up and say, hey, you're not here, you're not here. I don't do that. Because you might have other things in your life more important or things that you got to do. And so if you come, you'll learn. If you don't come, then you have other things to do. I get it. But the ones who are dedicated and come and work hard because they see the value and how it affects them, they show up. We've had them for years. I've got some black belts been with me 20 to 30 years. They keep coming, and they never had to get a call and say, how come you're not here? Why aren't you here? But our leadership, when we do our events, like I said, the one that we're going to do in June 23rd at St. Mary's High School, thank God for St. Mary's, they says, we want to be a part of what you're doing. St. Mary's has been just stellar with their help and helping us, bring this event there, which we're very proud of because we hadn't had our last event since 2019 that we had over at Lincoln High School. COVID-19 hit, and guess what? Nobody would allow any kind of large events of gathering. 11 and a half months, we were shut down. We were forced to shut down. We almost lost everything.
Wow.
How can you be such successful? I have over 700 plus students, and all of a sudden, pop, 11 and a half months shut. I asked the city opportunity, can I teach my students in the at the park? Nope, the parks are shut. You go out there, you get a fine, we'll take your business license. Ooh, I ain't doing that. Mm-hmm. And I said, I don't know what to do. We can't, we had Zoom classes, but you don't get the same amount of people on Zoom classes. And so here we almost lost everything. So what I ended up doing, my wife says, you know what? Maybe you make your job into looking at some of those grants out there. I said, okay, I'll do that too. But I prayed, I said, please, Lord, give me a sign, some kind of help, something. And the next day, one of my students, who's a pastor, Paul Stanley, he's one of my black belts. He runs Carson Oaks Community Church. He said, Sensei, my board of directors were asking me, we're having a problem with having our church services indoors because they won't allow it either, but they allow us to do it outdoors as a sign of protest, but we have a chance to still at least have, our church services outdoors as long as everyone's sitting, far apart from each other. And they asked me, how would you like to do your karate classes on the front lawn of the house of the Lord? I went,
Look at the Lord.
thank you, Lord. And we had my students out there. We had like 30, 40, 50 students out there training on the grass for several months until we finally had an opportunity to open back up again. But between that and getting the grants from the San Joaquin County grants and the city grants and some of the state grants, I just became a professional at that. Went after all the grants and I got every one of them. And so those grants saved us. And that and teaching on the front lawn of the house of the, Carson Oaks Community Church, I'll never forget that. Those are all moments that, like I always say, every bad thing has an opportunity. Every bad thing. If you think bad, all of a sudden you think, oh, this is it. Woe is me, the sky's falling. But if you say, okay, wait a minute, there's got to be an opportunity here.
Yeah.
There's got to be an opportunity here. It's like before I came here, and I just showed you guys that we went next door to grab some of these magazines to show, some of the things we did. And we went into our lobby, and the lights fell. For some reason, they came down, and I'm going, oh my God, what are we going to do? And my wife says, hey, we have Phoenix Roofing, which is a very good friend and client of ours. They'll come in and they'll take care of it. They'll help us out. So we've sent them messages, and we're getting responses, and opportunity. It's gonna get fixed even better, than it was. So every bad thing has an opportunity. Just how you accept those different things, I still remember the moment where my wife came in, and we were thinking about doing a tournament several years back, but we didn't have the money for it. I said, oh, how are we gonna pay for this thing? And she comes into the restroom before I'm ready to take a shower, and she goes, honey, look. I says, what? She goes, I won $10,000 on lottery. and I said, what? She goes, look, I won. And it was a scratcher. And I said, oh, thank you, Lord. We got a way to pay for this. And she goes, look at this. And she goes, I'm going to tell the boys. So she goes out and she calls my son to tell him, wow, I won $10,000. And I'm in the shower. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is the best shower I have ever had. This is so wonderful. And so I said, thank you, Lord. And I came out and I went over and sat next to her. I said, let me see that again. And I looked at it and I went, I'm scratching. And I looked at it, honey, you didn't scratch it all off. She goes, what? I said, you didn't scratch. It doesn't match. You didn't win $10,000. $10,000. And she goes, oh my gosh. And I said, you know what? I'll never forget that shower. Because really, it taught me one thing. Life is a frame of mind. If you wake up every morning, or if you even think I won the lottery, or something in that nature, it really sets an endorphin rush in your head that really changes your day. It really does. And I think every time I start to get down, I say, hey, just find that feeling like you did when you thought you had the lottery. And you'd be surprised, how it'll make you feel. And so that is a moment I'll never forget. And that's a shower I'll never forget either. But the thing is, a couple months later, we're still, trying to find and work, money up for the tournament. We were up at Jackson. Sometimes you do whenever you're able to just get out and do stuff. And I only had one entry into this contest, and it was for $5,000. And I'm sitting there, and I'm playing, this one machine, and I hear, and our $5,000 winner is Eugene. And I went, oh, Tibon, and I jumped up. And it was funny because most of the people that win, sometimes they don't get too excited. I said, no, I'm going to show these people what excitement's supposed to be. So I run in there, man, I'm jumping, and I do a circle thing like this, yeah! And so the lady who came to me and asked me, come on over, everybody, get your information. She says, what did you have? About 20, 30 entries? I said, 1. And she says, 1? How did you have 1? And I showed her, I reached in my pocket, and I says, I carry this with me, every place I go. And what it is, it's a coin. Well, not I carry a coin, but I carry a rosary that my sister-in-law got me from Jerusalem. But the coin says, on the back, it's a cross, and it says, with God, all things are possible. Mark 10:27. And I says, that's how I want with 1 entry. I says, there's a blessing. So guess what? I paid for my tournament. So you never know. Every bad thing has opportunity. I didn't win on her lottery, but look what happened. I ended up being blessed with a helping with Jackson Rancheria.
Well, thank you so much. You're a very good storyteller.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we might have time for a couple of questions if you guys have
Any
any.
questions?
If anybody has any referrals, we would love them. If you know somebody that wants to do karate that can't afford it, please have them come and talk to us.
That was my question.
So yeah, if somebody, I don't know if the live is still going, if somebody has a referral for somebody who wants to do karate but can't afford it, please send them over.
We have criteria, and the criteria is they got to be willing to be in school and be on time with school and go to all the classes. They can't be one of this kind of student that cuts and all that kind of stuff. They got to be respectful to their families, to their parents, or whoever they're living with, and at school. Their grades, I need to see them. And I look at report cards. I look at report cards on all my students because I want to see. Sometimes I get students that have straight A's, sometimes not so. Some have D's and F's. And so we work to make sure that we can develop them to get to that higher level. But sometimes it's just a matter of sitting down with them and talking with the parents to see. I had one parent one time that she came in and she goes, I want you to make my son take his belt and I want you to make him do 1,000 push-ups. I said, what? She goes, make him do 1,000 push-ups. I said, why? He goes, look at his report card, straight F's. I said, let me see the report card. And I looked at it and I went, F, 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 F. But dates of attendance, didn't miss any. So he's showing up for class, and he doesn't miss any, and he's getting straight F's. I said, have you had him tested? No, we won't do that. I said, why? I said, because our family has a great name, and we don't want that out there that he might have issues. And I went, that's not issues. That's not issues. That's give him a chance, to find out what the issues are to help him through it. Well, she took him and had him tested. I think it was at Silver Learning Center or something like that. Came back in tears. She goes, oh my God. She goes, all this time I've been punishing my son, grounding him, taking everything away from him for the last how many years, and he has like dyslexia. He couldn't even read certain things. And because they didn't even want to go and look at that, it just absolutely, floored her that there was a way, to get it worked with the right kind of, teaching and education. Well, he continued to keep doing karate, and then he graduated and went off to college. I saw him like 3 years later, and I saw him at Cannabis Car Wash. And he was getting gas, and we were washing our cars, and I said, hey, how you doing? He goes, Sensei, thank you. He goes, I just got my degree at Cal Poly.
Wow.
But that's what I mean, sometimes kids have different kinds of issues and different learning, and sometimes the parents are either too proud to give them the opportunity or take them to a place where they can get that development. Yes?
I was going to touch, thank you for everything that you're saying.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Sensitive, no. But I work with aged out foster youth. Mm-hmm. So when you're talking about at-risk youth, and I'm always thinking about different ways to help them develop, and so I know a lot of it is a mindset.
Right.
You touched on that.
Right.
And to give them an opportunity so they can go on with their life because they don't have anybody pushing them or touching them or anything. So if we would happen to have any of the youth in my age range is 18 to 25, is that something you work with, or you work with younger?
Yeah, we work with younger.
Okay.
You know, a lot of the younger is because we found that working with young ones, they're still impressionable.
Yes.
You can still make a difference in their life. Sometimes you have kids that are so used to a certain way of just being so radical that you can't bring them back in. It's very difficult, unless they want to, you know, unless they want to. And it takes a lot of hard work, because doing what we do is very, very disciplined, very hard work. There's a lot of expectation. And then at the same time, you got someone like me who's always asking about certain things, especially if they get into our leadership program. They got essays, they got reports, they got all that kind of stuff. And a lot of times, if they don't have that kind of mindset or discipline, they won't do it.
Oh, yeah.
And then that by itself tells me that's not the person for leadership, because if they're not willing to invest into themselves with at least the dedication and sacrifice of showing up and doing what is asked of them, they'll do the same thing on other parts of their life. You know, it's sad, but unfortunately, you know, that's kind of how it is. And we try to gear our scholarship towards the kids that are like, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 in that group.
Developmental age.
That developmental age, so we can still make a positive impact and a direction for them to understand respect and discipline and integrity and loyalty and all those type of things that a lot of times the kids don't get. You know, their household is so jumbled up that they don't have that even by the people that are raising them. You know, they're brought up with a lot of different turmoil. Yes.
I was just wondering if you have, like, I guess, words of advice. They say that the first 2 years are pretty critical for startups. Like a lot of them tend to close their, a lot of them tend to like close their doors.
Right.
And so, how do you get over that hump of, you know, you're starting this new venture, like this is what I really want to do. I want to go all in, and then there's just a point where it's like I'm tired. Like, how do I find time for my family if I'm trying to focus on this business, which I also care about? So how do you just, you know?
I did that.
Yeah.
And I juggled 2 jobs, you know. And the thing is that I had a young family. I mean, I got married at 18, you know. And so trying to juggle a job plus a family and do all that stuff is very difficult. But the one thing you got to come to a determination is, do I want to succeed? I refuse to fail. And you've got to arm yourself with the information that you need to help you get there. And that's why I would listen to these audio tapes all the time when I'm driving. So I didn't waste no time. A lot of times I didn't have time to sit and read all this different stuff because I was working. And so I'm thinking, well, if I'm driving and I can listen to it while I'm getting there, I'm educating myself. And I listened to them over and over and over until I can memorize what they were saying. And certain things would happen that would key me and say, okay, I can do this here. Number one, like I said, be the best at what you do. And if you have a product like my product, like I said, you walk in with nothing in your hands and you leave with nothing in your hands. All I give you is an idea and a thought process. I gotta be good at what I sell. If I'm just selling air, right? But even air costs money. But I've got to give them something that makes them feel that they're receiving total value. And then across with that, customer service. I want everybody when they come into my dojo feel like they're coming in to cheers. Everybody knows your name. It's enjoyable. It's fun. And then I create all these different events like these Easter egg picnics and summer picnics and camping trips where we'd have 100-something people on a camping trip. So I don't know what your business is, but I don't know if you're selling a product or if you're selling a service. And if you're selling a product, then make sure that it's a world-class product, because then it will sell itself.
Yeah.
You add your professionalism, your customer service, and your marketing strategy to that, you can't lose. If it's just a service you're selling, make sure your service is the best service, and that people leave thinking that they ripped you off. How could I get all this and only pay that? People love the deal. And if you can give them the greatest deal by the best customer service and the best product, of what you give and what you sell. And they leave thinking, man, I got the best deal. I got all this that's gonna change and impact my life and my family's life. And it didn't cost me that much money, you know? But you gotta still make a profit, you gotta still pay your bills, you gotta still do that. If it's something that you're passionate about and you love and you're willing to do even for free, then you'll find ways to include your family into it too. Because if it's a passion that you enjoy, most likely they'll enjoy it too. I didn't have a front counter person, I had my wife. And you talk about Susie Sunshine. I mean, she was exceptional, you know. I mean, people came in and I said, honey, I love you on the counter. She says, why? I said, because everyone wants to pay when you're there, you know. It's when I have another, you know, employee there, they don't want to pay their tuition, but when she's up there, oh, Mrs. Tibon, you know, they want to pay her and stuff. So, what kind of business are you in?
Oh no, I work for the city. It was just a question.
Oh yeah, no, that's a big piece of it. Sell a service, be a great service. Be one that's so over the top that they can't even understand. How can you do something so great as this? And if you need to bring in more different people to make that service even greater, then that's what you got to do. In our system, we didn't have weapons. In my system of karate, karate means empty hand, but kobudo means weaponry. And I searched for the best and highest level of martial arts weapon that there was, and that was a Okinawan art called Yamai under Sensei Toshihiro Ishiro. He's the top in the world out of Okinawa. And I said, that's the one that I want. That's the one I want to introduce to my students, because we go to a tournament and everybody be doing weapons and kata and kumite and fighting and all that, but we didn't do weapons. And I says, I don't like being outside of my students thinking, how come we don't qualify for that? How come we can't do this? So I brought the best of the best in. Not just an average person who's close, but the best of the best. And he came in, we had seminars every week, and we taught this art that now my students represented, you know, all over in international competition. They're the best at it. So bring in a service that may enhance your service. If you got a professional you can bring in there that can add another level of service to your to your business, then that's what you want to do. You know, if you think you know it all, you know, I learned this a lot. I hear a lot from my old masters. Anyone who says they know everything, you can't teach nothing. You know everything. I says, then you don't know nothing. If you say that, then you don't know nothing. Because you can learn something every single day. My old master says, I asked him, I says, Sensei, I says, when do you learn it all? When do you learn all of Goju? Sensei, you learn till you die. You learn till you die. Because when you die, you can't learn no more. But you learn up to that moment. There's something you could always learn, whether it's how to make your product better, maybe another language, maybe another business practice, or maybe another way of bringing your technology up, or how do you expand, you know, to even bigger. I was just one dojo. Now we're 5, you know, and just kept giving all my black belts and, you know, their jobs and move them all around to different places. Got great jobs, they're great teachers. We developed a great product because I made sure that they all learn a certain way, and that is the right way with no watered down, you know, teaching. It's all just the way it's supposed to be. And that's why when I give them international certification, I said, just think about this. Your international certification is recognized around the world. If you get your black belt certification and you go to any country and you want to teach, the first thing the government says is, do you have national certification, international or national certification? Because they won't allow you to open up a business in another country unless you have federation or national certification. Well, our certification is from the highest level in Japan, called Japan Karate Federation. They're the world body. And so if you go and you say, I have JKF or Japan Karate Federation ranking, boom, open your business. They'll do that. My students can do that. Nobody else can do that. So that's what I try to make us unique, even though they'll never go to another country and open up.
Well, you may have somebody teaching in another country. We have Antonio, who came to this country and didn't speak English.
Yeah.
and he has learned the system,
Yeah.
and I'm amazed at that.
Oh, he wants to get his wife
Spaghetti
out so he
was-
can go back and teach it in Mexico.
Yeah,
No, but anyway, any other questions?
and we also have like our business grew from nothing to now having 17 full-time, part-time employees, and everything that goes with that. So I really encourage you to start out with the business. Get a good bookkeeper, get a good accountant, and get a payroll service.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was that? Good bookkeeping, a payroll service, and what was the other one?
An accountant.
An accountant, because I think that's one of the things, when we hear small businesses come to us, that's the thing that we hear
Yeah,
about,
It is.
so.
It is. Yeah, we do ADP and they take care of so much of,
And our bookkeeper, unfortunately, people did leave Stockton. Our bookkeeper left to Idaho. In fact, we're gonna go visit her next week. And our accountant moved to Washington, another person that left
there's
Stockton.
no taxes over there. They're business minded, they think
Yeah.
about ways how to, stretch it more. But, I don't blame them. They're still great, so you know what I do? I mail my stuff to them.
There you go. All right,
Anyway,
thank you so
thank you so
much.
much.
This was so wonderful, so.
I hope I didn't bore you. I was worried.
No, man.
No,
So
you're
information.
We learn something every day.
I hope it's recorded so I can go show my children.
Yeah, it's on live, so
Yeah,
we'll
so
download it and
video.
share it.
Okay, great.
So I don't know if you want to look at some of these.
And his
articles.
office is always open, so drop by, talk to him personally, not a problem.
Yes.